Hi everyone, it's Professor Fernandez. I'm kind of excited to talk to you a little bit about this lesson because writing a summary is one of those things and one of those skills that you start learning because you have to do it, but then you kind of rely on that skill to do other things. So learning how to write a really good summary, and understanding the focus and the technique to a summary is super important. So I'm hoping that through this brief lesson, you start learning the basics and the ins and outs of writing a summary. You're definitely going to need to use it pretty soon as one of your essays contains a summary. So let's go over what's going to happen in this lesson. I'm going to tell you exactly what a summary is and what it isn't, which is extremely important. Of course, how to go about writing one, what actually is in a summary, what you should put in there, what you should leave out, and some possible places where you will use it, other than, of course, using it for your essay that's coming up. So a couple of housekeeping rules here. You are more than welcome to rewind this lesson at any moment to help you review. This is why having lessons on YouTube is helpful because you can rewind things at any moment. I also want you to understand that this isn't just the lesson, right? This is a lesson, and a lesson works in conjunction with other things. There may be some things in the book that you may need to read. There may be other lessons that help this lesson. There may be an example for you to look at and to try to understand. There may be a discussion board of which you're going to need to do some work in summarizing. So I don't want you to think that this is the end all be all lesson. Again, this is part of a bigger thing. All the puzzle pieces work together. And of course, I'm going to encourage that you ask questions because that's pretty much how you learn. I can do the best presentation on the face of this planet, but there will be a question I may not have answered or something you did not understand. So there is a reason why things like office hours and email and even like discussion boards exist, so that you can ask questions and that you can have your questions answered. So let's go ahead and start and talk about what actually a summary is. And I want you to think about summary and the word short together. You may have at one point been asked to write a summary paper or a book report, and a book report is very similar to writing a summary about the book, right? So you may have been asked to do that, and in that case, it's actually longer than what I'm going to be asking you to do. But in reality, a summary paper is, a summary is actually pretty short. And you can do a summary about anything. You could do a summary about a book, a novel, a video, an event, pretty much anything that happens, anything that you consume as someone who consumes media, or someone who likes to go and have fun, say like an event or something, when it's not pandemic time. So that can be a summary. You've actually probably already have learn some summary techniques whenever someone tells you, oh, tell me what happened. And then you tell them what happened. That's actually a form of summary work right there. So you probably have already tried and have been successful at summary work. There is lots of purposes for summaries and why we do summaries. Um, I will go into that here and later on in the lesson. But again, being able to summarize something very succinctly and very directly is a really good skill to learn and to perfect. And then the big thing about summary that I think gets left out in the cold is that summaries are about the big details, not the smaller details. It leaves out little things. It does not put a focus on them. So the focus is really on the big details. And we're going to go through an example of this. So just as important as we know that what summaries are, so that's important. What is equally as important is to know what summaries are not. And so again, I have to say it is not a play-by-play about what happened or the little details. Again, someone may have asked you what happened, and you probably just gave them the big details, not the smaller details. Or maybe you gave them the smaller details because they cared about the small details, who said what they were wearing, what they said, what they looked like when it was said. Those are smaller details, but there's importance on those details, so you added them in your summary of the event of or the thing that happened. So it really is about the details that matter. A summary, of course, is not long. Again, like I said, unless you're writing a summary paper. You may be asked to write a summary paper um, in this semester or in the next semester. And so what you're learning here, you're actually going to be able to stretch out into a paper length summary. So I also want to warn about the length of it being too short. If it's too short, you're really not saying anything. There is really a sweet spot for a summary paragraph, and we'll go over that here in this lesson. Of course, a summary is not about your opinion. Your opinion here is moot. It's really about what happened. You want just the facts, none of the little details, just what happened, the big plot points, the big main idea. And here's one thing that we have to also recognize, that it doesn't really have direct quotes. Some folks have used summaries with direct quotes or partial quotes. And I think that's kind of lazy, because really, if the whole idea is to kind of give the main idea of what happened, you putting quotes in something isn't really giving a summary. That person might as well just have gone and watched that movie or read that book or been at that event. So giving the summary without direct quotes is actually the skill. Putting the direct quotes in the summary is not the skill. All right. So here's the big money thing. You're probably wondering, all right, so Professor Fernandez, you have told me all this stuff, what it is, what it isn't. I'm not still quite sure how to go about writing one. Okay, so here's a couple of things you want to keep in mind. So if you're going to write a summary about the thing, and usually I say the thing as in whatever the thing is you're writing the summary about. Again, it could be a book, it could be a video, it could be a poem, it could be about dinner last night, or going over to a friend's house, or a movie. So whatever the thing is, you're going to have to actually experience the thing. So if you're asked to write a summary about an article, you're gonna have to read the article. If you're going to write a summary about a video, you're gonna have to watch the video. There's no way of getting around it. And you're gonna have to take notes while you're doing that. Sometimes you can read the thing or watch the thing more than one time, so that way you understand it. Because the first time you're experiencing the thing, the movie, the book, the short story, the event, whatever, you're really just experiencing it. You're just trying to take in the information. And then you really don't really sit and think about it until maybe the second time you experience the thing. And then you have an idea of, oh, this is what it is, what it's about. So you definitely have to experience the thing and definitely take notes on it. So you want to figure out what the main idea or the argument of the thing is. What is it trying to say? Of course, if you're in my English 1302, we spend the entire semester trying to identify an argument of whatever the thing that we're reading is, right? So, but for the most part, if you get the main idea, the main gist of what they're trying to say, what is their position on things, then you can start formulating your summary around it, right? So that's important to understand, that everything that you read or consume has a main idea, has a main thought, has an argument, and identifying that goes a long way into writing your summary. And then you want to know the most important bits that lead to the main idea. are the supporting things that led to this? Why is this person saying that gummy bears are better than Starburst? What is their evidence? Why do they hate Starburst so much? most of my um, most of my examples deal with food, and it's probably usually candy. So let's just say that you're reading an article where some poor soul thinks that gummy bears is better than Starburst, and they're making this argument. What is leading them to this opinion? Um, that is important to put in there. Those are actually the big details I was talking about earlier. So let's talk a little bit here about brainstorming. Brainstorming here is important. And what I don't want you to think is that brainstorming is this big epic thing, right? Just the word brainstorming kind of makes it feel bigger than it is. Brainstorming really is just taking a moment or taking a couple of minutes to think about things and to give the idea some space, right? It could take it can take many forms. You can brainstorm while you're driving to school or driving somewhere. Please pay attention to the road. However, you can brainstorm while you're out on a run or working out. And you get ideas popping in. You can do a quick brainstorm just sitting, waiting for class to start or waiting for an appointment to begin. It does not take long. It could take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, anything pretty much over 10 minutes going into the 20-minute realm, maybe too much brainstorming. The idea is that you want to think about the ideas and you want to make sure that your brainstorming is focused on that one thing you need to think about and those ideas that come through. You also want to make a list of those ideas and don't dismiss any ideas that you think are not good enough or bad ideas, because sometimes the bad ideas are just good ideas that haven't had a chance to blossom yet. So you want to just write down everything, write down all these ideas, and then you want to step away from your brainstorming and then give it a chance to breathe and then come back to it with fresh brain, fresh eyes, and rethink the brainstorming. Is there anything in that list that kind of jumps at you saying, and you'll say to yourself, maybe this wasn't great when I thought about it yesterday, but now thinking about it today, if I tweak this idea, this could work, right? So again, like that's what you want to do. And of course, again, brainstorming takes many forms. You really just can just make a list for brainstorming. I know you may have learned different techniques, something about idea maps or mind maps. Those are useful. Those are really great to understand how things are connected. But you really can just write things down and make a list for yourself. All right, let's continue. So we have an idea of what summaries are and are not, some ideas on how to write it, but like, how do you translate that to words on paper? Well, there is about a sweet spot when it comes to a summary. A summary is about 200 to 230 words, I would say. 250 words are good. It's a little on the longish side, considering that a full double-spaced paper is about 250 words, right? So you don't want your summary to be a full page. So about 200 to 230 words. Anything under 200, I'm a little worried about. Anything under 100 is probably not usable. So there is a sweet spot, and it really is going to determine, the sweet spot is really determined by how advanced you are in your writing technique. So if you're really good at your word choice and really strong at stringing your words together in a way that you only use 5 words when other people are using 7, right? You're really good at word choice, really good at not using passive voice and whatnot, then you can probably get away towards the lower end of that. If you are still learning and you're still robust with words and you're still a little wordy, and that's okay. Everyone, when they start writing and don't practice it often, is a little wordy. then you're probably going to be closer towards the higher end of that range. Now, you're also going to use neutral language in this, and that means that there is no opinions. You have no opinions. Summaries contain no opinions because that's not what a summary is. However, if you're writing, say, something like a response essay or a reflective essay, you are going to have opinions. Just that you need to present the summary first before you have the opinion. Of course, you want to be accurate with your language, so you definitely don't want to have opinions, but you want to portray things as accurately as possible. Be very, very neutral, and this is very important to look at your word choice in the summary. You don't want any loaded words. And of course, you're going to want to introduce the thing and introduce the person who created the thing. And that's something you want to write in that very first sentence in your summary. The title of the thing, you want to put that in quotations or italics, not both at the same time. So if it is in italics, that means it stands on its own. So things like books and movies, they stand on their own. They're not part of a bigger thing. So books and movies are usually in italics, and things like short stories and poems and articles are usually in quotation marks. But you do not use quotation marks and italics at the same time. Please do not do that. And so when you're done with that, you're going to write what the argument or the main idea is. And you usually want to write that in the same sentence. I'll show you an example here in a second. You also want to have some supportive detail. And the supportive detail is what the person who created the thing wrote or said to support what their main idea is. And then you do want to write all the big things, but you don't want to write the small details. I know I've said that at least 3 times already, but this is important. This is where students mess up a little bit. And so I want you to make sure that the details are big and important. So let's look at an example here. I have this here in the PowerPoint presentation, but what I want to do is go ahead and bring up a Word document here. And this is a really good example. This is a student example, and the student did really well on this summary of Elizabeth Loftus' TED Talk called How Reliable Is Your Memory? It's a really great TED Talk. If you've never seen it, you should probably Google it. And so I want to talk about the pieces of this summary. So let's look at this here first paragraph here. We see how this student starts with a couple things that we've already said. So we see here in this first line, the title of the thing. The title of the thing is How Reliable Is Your Memory? We also have the person who created the thing. Her full name is Elizabeth Loftus. And so you're probably wondering why this particular student used the last name and not the first name. So this is actually from a response essay that this student is responding to. And so when you understand the structure of a response essay, you know that there's an introduction, and then after the introduction is the summary, which is where I got this from. Now, this particular student had already introduced the reader to Elizabeth Loftus, the curator of this video. Therefore, when they introduced this curator, Elizabeth Loftus, in the introductory paragraph, every instance where they're going to use her name, they're just going to use her last name. So I wanted to make sure that I point that out, because what I don't want to happen is that you write your summary and you save the introduction of the person who created the thing to your summary, and then you just write the last name. You really want to make sure that the first time that the person is introduced in the essay, you write out their first name. After that, you write their last name throughout the rest of the essay. Okay, so we have to review the name of the thing, the name of the person who created the thing. Now what we have is the big argument or the big main idea that this person is seeing in this video. So this person is telling me that Loftus discusses how a person's memory is perceived as an impenetrable truth, but the reality is that memory can be corrected or manipulated to misconstrue the facts. I've seen this video very many times, and this person is very true and very accurate. And this verbiage or these words, this word choice is not loaded. It's very straight to the point. And this is the main idea of that video. So you see how in that first sentence, you have the name of the thing, the name of the person who does the thing, and then what the argument or the main idea is. So in the structure of this particular paragraph is that this person picked out two big points, two big details to talk about. It says here, Loftus shares how a rape victim misidentified a man that she believed assaulted her. That's one thing. And let me see if I can go ahead and highlight this if it'll let me. It won't let me right now. Okay. So this is one point here. I'll put this in italics. And so then this particular student goes about and says how this is an example of how a person that underwent the intense stress of the trauma has an extremely unreliable memory. So the student picked one thing that led or that supports the main idea, and then an example or a support to this first thing. And then here's the second thing that they're pointing out. The second big detail that they're pointing out here is that Loftus also discussed how easy it is to manipulate a person's memory through simple directed speech in order to make them believe they had been a part of an event that was completely fictional. So two big things. So you have the main idea here, and let me put this in bold. You have the main idea here, and then two big details that support the main idea, how she got there, right? How Loftus got there. And then you have these details here in their one sentence that support the big detail. Then you have what is the last line that kind of ties it all together. It's almost like the conclusion of the paragraph, but it's not. I believe you know what that word is because we did parts of an essay very recently. So by showing how easily memory is influenced and changed, Loftus creates a discussion about how memory manipulation should be used and when it is dangerous and unethical. So again, kind of recapping what they said, and that is the summary. And this is why the summary works and does really, really well. Let's go back to the lesson. So now that you've understood what a summary is and what it isn't, and then how a summary kind of flows and functions, you're probably wondering, why do you need to use it? Well, one really super fast answer I can give you is that you're going to use it in your response essay. Your response essay, and I sometimes call it a reflective essay, you're going to use that for this essay. And it's the first big essay you're going to write for me in this class. And when you soon see the structure of the essay, it is literally the second paragraph of the essay. So you want to be able to do a summary and do it relatively well. How you're also going to use it probably outside of class is that when you're reviewing or taking your notes or when you're studying for a test or something, you want to be able to summarize a fact or an idea or an event, maybe for like history class or philosophy class or even math class. By trying to summarize something, it lets you know whether you understand the concept or not. And if you can't summarize the thing that you're summarizing, that means you don't understand it, you haven't learned it, And you probably need to go back and review some things or ask more questions. So that way you are prepared. And that's one way that summaries are useful, especially when it comes to studying and studying tips. Because if you can summarize a fact or an idea or a lesson, that means you understood it and you can move on. What is also interesting and how it's also helpful is trying to understand difficult concepts and trying to understand the organization and structure of something. So when you're looking, say, at a video or a book or a movie or whatever, you understand how, just by trying to do a summary, you understand how the main idea is laid out in the book or in the movie or in the thing. You understand how the argument or how the main idea is supported by facts. So understanding the organization of something is going to help you become a better reader and help you understand things a little bit better. And it's going to help you explain things to others. Now, I know I went through this fairly quickly and you may have questions. In fact, I welcome your questions. So if you do have questions, feel free to email me or feel free to make some office hours with me. I look forward to listening and look forward to answering your questions. You guys have a great day.